So here's the anthropic principle. Basically says that the conclusion of many modern cosmologists is that the universe, and here's the essential point, appears to have had man in mind. That's the point. It's just too coincidental that we live in a life-allowing universe, not a life-prohibiting universe. Okay? In other words, as cosmologists look at it, they say, wow, if this was off just a fraction of life would be impossible. And so they say, wow, it really looks like the universe had man in mind. And thus you have the anthropic principle, the man principle. You follow that. Number 5 is the case from morality. And this is an interesting one, especially in light of our most recent presidential election. And I'm not going to get in what I think is moral or immoral or any of that, but I can demonstrate to you something that I think is very interesting. And if you follow this, you'll like it. It comes, of course, from Greek, the word axiom, which in the Greek is something worthy. If you have studied at all in mathematics, you have mathematical axioms, which are things that do not need proof. They are maxims that are widely accepted on their own intrinsic merit. Well, it basically looks like this. These are things, again, that we know for certain. Number 1, moral systems are not uniform, but they are unified at a fundamental level. Have you ever heard somebody say there's different moral systems? There are totally different moral systems, and what's moral in one culture is not moral in another culture. Have you ever heard anybody say something like that? Okay, that is only partly true. Don't let somebody snowball you on that. And I can demonstrate that right here and right now. Notice the choice of the words here. Moral systems are not uniform, okay? But they are unified at a fundamental level. Now, watch this. Unlike language systems, which are truly arbitrary, there are golden threads that run through all moral systems. This is easily demonstrated. Is anybody in here conversant in a language other than English? Okay. What languages do we have represented here? Chinese?
Telugu.
Telugu?
Chinese and
French? Spanish? German? Spanish. Okay. Let's pick any noun. Let's take the word dog. Okay? Dog. How do you say dog in Chinese?
Gao.
Kaho. Okay? Dog. And how do you say it in the language that you said?
Kuka.
Kuka.
K-U-K-K-A.
Okay. And what was yours? Kao. Is that right? Dog?
Gao, right.
Okay. So far not the same. How about in French?
Chien.
Shin. And anybody else? What did we have here? That was Spanish. Perro. I thought that was donkey. Oh, no, that's burro. Oh, yeah, perro. And do we have another language? German. Let's hear it. Hund, of course, from hound. Now, we've just picked one word here. And while there might have been a few similarities in there, like between these two languages, clearly this is not the same word. Now, how can that be? Very easy to understand. Language is arbitrary. Do you follow that? What we call a dog, we could have just as easily called a limousine. Because there's nothing in a dog that necessitates it being called a dog. It's not an onomatopoeia. I don't have time to get into that. A dog, we could have said, hey, look at that limousine. That could be a dog. We could just as easily have called a Bible a lollipop, right? Open your lollipop, right? We could have done that because there's nothing inherent in this structure that necessitates it being called the word Bible. And how do you know that? Because, now here's the key. You will not find one series of words, and I don't even think you'll find one word that is universal in all language systems. Do you find that? So you're not going to find one word that is whatever it is in Chinese, in the language that you speak, brother, in French, in Spanish, and in... Does that make sense? Yes or no? Why? Because they're totally arbitrary. We just arbitrarily assign names to things. We just pick them. Okay, now there are some things like, I happen to be a very avid bird watcher. So you have a bird called a chickadee. And we call it chickadee because it goes chickadee-dee-dee. That's an onomatopoeia. So it makes a sound that sounds like that, but I can guarantee you that it's not going to sound that way in every language. In fact, my wife is from Romania, and we say a pigeon says, hoo, hoo. And in Romania, a pigeon says, kukurigu, kukurigu. So I always joke with my wife when I hear a pigeon, I say, oh, this one speaks American. This one speaks English. And another good one is in the United States, we say, oh, when I'm teaching my boy a dog, I say, oh, this dog says ruff, ruff. But in Romania, dogs say hum, hum, right? So even onomatopoeias are not exact. The point here is this. Language is arbitrary. But watch this. This unity, the unity of moral systems, argues strongly for the existence of an objective, universal, and transcendent morality. Now, let me see if I have another. Yeah, here you go. Check this out. In a recent fundraising letter, Amnesty International Executive Director John Healy wrote the following words, okay? Remember, not a Christian organization, not a theistic organization, just an organization arguing strongly for human rights, which I believe in, by the way, of course. He says, I am writing to you today because I think you share my profound belief that there are indeed some moral absolutes. You see that? Moral absolutes. Well, what are they, Mr. Healy? Well, when it comes to torture, so for Mr. Healy, this is a moral absolute, which, by the way, our government increasingly is not sharing. I don't have time to get into that. To government-sanctioned murder, to disappearances, there are no lesser evils, says Mr. Healy. These are outrages against all of us. But notice what Mr. Healy's saying. He's not saying, I don't prefer murder. I don't prefer torture. I'd much rather have a back rub. That is not what Mr. Healy is saying. What Mr. Healy is saying is, these are universally wrong. Do you follow that, yes or no? So he's not making a preferential statement, he's making a principled statement. You say, well, what gives him the right to make that? Well, frankly, if he doesn't believe in God, he has no right to make that statement. But let's go back to that languages thing. Is there a moral thread or threads that run through all moral systems? Is there a thread that runs through all moral systems? The answer is yes. I can give you at least one right off the top of my head. Okay, we have China represented. We have what country are you from, brother?
India.
Okay, we have India represented. We have anybody from a different country here other than those two?
Uruguay.
Uruguay. Oh, really? Oh, I might be going to Uruguay later this year.
Really?
Yeah. Joe, you're from Korea, right? Or your parents are Korean? Okay. So here we go. There is no culture on the top side of the earth, or the bottom side, we'll include the Australians, no culture where it is considered honorable to treat with cruelty those who have been kindest to you. Do you follow that? Would that be considered honorable in the Chinese culture, to treat with cruelty those that had treated you with kindness?
No.
Hardly. You won't find any moral system that says that's considered honorable. But notice what you've just done, if you believe that, and it's true, by the way. You have just said, wait a minute, there is a moral constant that runs through all of these supposedly diverse moral systems. You won't find any moral system that says it's okay to treat with cruelty those that have been kindest to you, that is honorable. No, 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 no. So if you have a moral thread, and there are others, but I just don't have time to go into them. If you have a moral thread that runs through all so-called morally divergent systems, you have just proved that morality is not arbitrary. Morality must be anchored to something, because unlike language, which has no golden thread, morality has several golden threads that run through all cultures. You follow that? Yes or no? But what happens there? If morality is not anchored in man, if man is not the measure of all things, then morality must be transcendent. Do you follow that? It must be externally given to us, not internally derived. Because if morality is internally derived, you have no complaint against, say, an Adolf Hitler, or even a Saddam Hussein, to make it more contemporary. All you could say is, I don't prefer the killing of people. That's all you could say. In the same way that you might say, I prefer pizza to tacos. It's a preferential statement. But no, no, no. We live, we breathe, we act, and our moral systems prove beyond any shadow of a doubt that there are such things as moral absolutes. Do you follow that? Yes or no? Now, hey, let's debate what those things are. I think we need to come to the point here is that if they exist at all, you have just proved that man is not the measure of all things, and that morality must be transcendent and thus universal.